What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am so excited. What is up, my co host Tyler, my friend Travis, and my co host Dale? Guys, you are amazing. You have brought fellowship to me early, and I am so thankful. And we've got a special edition of Faith on Altar tonight. This is so awesome. We're going to be talking about the explanatory power of axiology, and Travis is going to present us with this case. I am hanging out tonight with a good friend. It's Old Vine Zinfandel. I just bottled it. It's been waiting 8 months for me to drink. I'm going to send it out to my friends that would like a bottle. So, Tyler wants one. You might not like it. It's a little dry, but it's old and it's actually really good. But besides that, we have an earth-shattering announcement. Canada has really surprised us. It has made a huge leap in
worst thing
the
ever.
progression of humankind. It realized with my voice, with my efforts of deciding to come against the Crush Company. Now, I'm not gonna talk bad about any company or anything like that, but I am gonna say
Crush is our
I am going to
sponsor
say
tonight.
that Canada stepped up to the plate and they decided to not produce red cream soda. And that is a giant leap for mankind. And it's a step forward in the right direction. They're doing their job. You know, they finally stepped up to the plate and they manned up and they, you know, stopped producing the stuff, which I am grateful for that they listened to. You know, orange drinks belong in an orange drink category or a fruit drink category. It does not belong into a cream soda category. So with that, I am going to announce my wonderful co-host, brother Tyler Fowler. How are you doing?
I don't even get to respond to that.
No, shut your mouth. No. I'm doing great with my orange crush drink here, as you see.
It's wonderful.
Flaunting it, you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that, you know, some things have its place. I think, you know,
cream soda has its place.
Red cream soda, you know, Crush red cream soda did try at least, and I guess it failed. So I apologize.
Going after Dale's milk next. Bags just don't cut it. We need plastic.
I mean, you did good with the red cream soda thing, so maybe they'll listen to you with the bags of milk as well. But David, I'm doing good tonight. I'm excited to have Travis here. So basically, for those who don't know, we did a kind of a pre-show to this. We were talking theodicy last Saturday. We had Dane Von Ace, we had Carrie Griffel, we had a panel with us, and Travis could not make it. And so we've decided tonight Travis could make it. So he's going to let us know a little bit more about axiology. Carrie kind of hinted around at this. She played with the idea. We had a good discussion back and forth. We had Caleb Mullins on that episode as well, and David Lewis. So that was really cool to see those guys interact. But Travis, brother, how are you doing tonight? And we'll go with Dale last. So
okay, you're ruining my joke, but okay.
I'm sorry.
The longer we wait, the more out of place it's going to be.
I'm building, like soul building. We're going to be talking tonight. I'm building people's souls, waiting on your joke. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, okay. The virtue of patience.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyway, so I'm doing really good. You know, I'm really blessed, and you know, I consider it an honor to be here with you guys. I mean, you guys are really cool. I love talking theology with you and everything, and I love the audience. You know, the audience. I think the people in the audience are very valuable. So I really value the ability to talk to people like that and to just kind of share my ideas. And within topics in theology and the philosophy of religion. And so, yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about value and what kind of world we would expect a perfect God to create and so forth. So.
Right on.
Yeah. Right on, Dale. You know, you are special, and
you're valuable.
You're valuable, and we want to give you the floor.
So, guys, let's get into this topic. Travis,
shut up. I'm going to show you guys what is valuable. Okay, what is valuable? What would a perfect God make? This is what he would make.
That's valuable.
Cream soda. And now, guess what I'm stuck with? Thanks to David.
Here goes our copyright clause.
What is this? What do you Americans drink? This is not cream soda. I am very upset right now, and David, it's all your fault. So,
well, they thought you needed water more, so you need to drink more water, Dale. You know, you don't drink wine.
I'm going to stick with my bagged milk. At least we still have bagged milk, so we're still good.
Yeah, well, not for long because I'm coming after that next. So, but yes, thank you all of you for being here, and this brings fellowship so much closer to me. And
it's so
Travis, you are such part of this team. If you're ever in need of anything, we are here. Faith Unaltered is here. We will. If you need a mic stand, I will send you one. If I have to, if that's the case, I already got to get Dale's C fixed, and that's on his keyboard. I guess he needs his C fixed because
I was always wondering.
So we need to get Dale a new laptop.
You should have seen my master's thesis full of exercises. The spelling afterwards was fun.
But yeah, so this is going to be fun, and I love the fellowship, and you've got Tyler, who is excellent at throwing a freaking wrench into what you've been studying by asking you questions you haven't considered. So he learned that from Josh Davidson. It's not original to him because he's a heretic, but it's it's okay. We love Tyler anyway. But no, seriously. And then you got you got me and Dale who love this philosophy as well. And I think we've all had several long nights of discussion on these things. I mean, me and Dale, Dale would call me and we'd sit for a while just discussing this stuff, and he would help me out trying to run through some things. And you and Caleb were instrumental in helping me run through some ideas that I was trying to get around you that I couldn't properly explain even. So I mean, this has just been a long time in coming, and since we're covering parts of the problem of evil and stuff like that, this stuff plays on a creative role into figuring out the truth.
Sure.
And it's amazing to have you here, Travis. Thanks for coming. I don't know where your little RTB sign is, since I don't know where you stand with that anymore.
So I'm in the Reasons to Believe apologetics community, where I kind of like highlight and showcase a lot of their work. I'm still a member, and I really love doing that. I think their ministry is incredibly valued. In fact, it was through Hugh Ross's work, like highlighting, I think it was like the local planetary fine tuning, but that's what got me in, to eventually become a Christian in the first place. So
So where else can people find you, Travis? I mean, you're part of our team as well.
Sure.
But like, I know you're starting a new phase in your life, and you're talking about getting into deeper into philosophy and religion and stuff like that. So I would just love to hear where not only people can find you, and what you're planning for the future.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm part of the ministry I'm in right now is I'm really pretty heavily involved in outreach ministry, specifically to the homeless populations in the Dallas, Texas area. So I do that, and I'm really getting into, of course, I love philosophy of religion, and, just discussing these deep questions sort of in my spare free time. I just have a love and passion for the philosophy of religion and the philosophy of science too, and even how the two can interact. And so, yeah. And, one thing, you were mentioning about disagreements, I think that is so valuable, because disagreements, what they do is they can help us to kind of, shine the light of reason onto our path to see if maybe we're stumbling in the wrong direction, or it can even help, shape away arbitrary aspects of our own theory to leave a more polished, robust version of it. And so I think charitable dialogue and disagreement is incredibly valuable. It has a real alethic value that I really appreciate. So.
Right on. Well, let's get into this, guys. Travis, you've got the floor, brother. This is all you, man.
Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the notes I've jotted down. Tyler, if you want to go ahead and bring up slide 1, and I guess we'll just leave the slides up until I just like run through this little presentation.
Yeah, just tell me whenever to switch, and that'll be good.
Okay, yeah. So this is what I'm going to be covering first is known as the defeat condition. So in his essay, The Defeat of Good and Evil, Roderick Chisholm explained that an evil or suffering, we can use it interchangeably, evil is defeated when it is integrated as a constitutive part of a valuable composite whole that not only outweighs the evil, but could not be as valuable as it is without the evil. So in that instance, the evil remains evil in its own right, but it is defeated since it is made to be a good-making, non-regrettable part of the whole. Okay, so it's also important to, take into consideration that this argument I'm going to be presenting is teleological, in that it looks forward to the fulfillment of God's promises to explain present evil, rather than the Augustinian view of looking back to the fall for the explanation. It's a datum that, a world where the highest virtues are displayed is a world with great value in it. It follows that an omnipotent, omniscient being would have strong reason to bring about such a world. The axiological framework we go with is going to be very important here. And so if you want to go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, so we'll just leave it there. So what I'm going to be talking about now is the fine-tuning of a saint fostering world. And so basically, if there is a best kind of world, we would expect that kind of world given theism. But it would be quite surprising to find ourselves in the best possible kind of world given the range of possible outcomes on the assumption of a chance hypothesis. God, who seeks value, would be expected to create a world where the highest virtues can be produced, such as courage, compassion, kindness, generosity, benevolence, mercy, tolerance, honor, trustfulness, trustworthiness, responsibility, friendship, cooperation, diligence, discipline, helpfulness, gratitude, and especially empathy and forgiveness, which are among the highest manifestations of love, which is the highest of the virtues. So, with this value driven approach, the fundamental assumption is that how one responds in life is more important than what happens to one, and that the best kind of life is the one exemplifying the highest virtues, and the greatest of these is love. I would propose that the best way to judge the moral value of a world is how it exemplifies the highest virtues. What God can be expected to want is a world in which the highest virtues are displayed. This involves two components that can be expected in a world that displays the highest virtues. So we want to ask what God must bring about if he wishes to create a situation in which these virtues will be fostered. The logically necessary preconditions for the display of the highest virtues are evil of sufficient intensity, but not so intense so as to destroy the psyche of most of those in the situation, and of sufficient frequency to provide multiple opportunities to form habits, but not too frequent so as to yield too high a probability of complete demoralization of the souls of all who go through them. There must be a sufficient chance of success for a sufficient number of individuals. This gives us a sort of range of what we would expect to find and the fine-tuning of a virtue-producing world. So as we have on the screen, the first world is too frequent and too mild. Then there's too frequent and the right intensity. 3 is too frequent and too intense. 4, right frequency and too mild. 5, right frequency and right intensity. 6 is the right frequency and too intense. 7, too infrequent and too mild. 8 is too infrequent and the right intensity. And 9 is too infrequent and too intense. Okay, and so if you want to go to the next one, Tyler. Okay, so what I'm going to be going through now is that making the case that we find ourselves in a type 5 universe. This is a world that is a producer of much opportunity for and considerable exercise of virtue. In this world, it is for people to lead lives which they consider on the whole worth living. There's and I'm going to argue this is much more to be expected given theism than naturalism. As naturalism leaves it to chance and makes no predictions about what sort of world we would expect to find, whereas theism would predict a world where the highest virtues would be produced to bring about saints. I'm going to be making the case that theism actually entails that we find ourselves in a type 5 world. And so the basic argument is going to be the probability of a type 5 universe given theism is 1. A central theme here is the transformative power of triumph over tragedy and the formation of virtuous saintly character. In the Bayesian formulation of this argument from evil, having made the assumption that the hypotheses of theism and naturalism are roughly on par with respect to prior probability, the issue comes down to the likelihood ratios of the two hypotheses with respect to the facts concerning evil. So as we go through the argument here, let S be the saint-seeking story about God wanting to bring about a world that offers ample opportunity for the development of the highest virtues for sainthood, which requires significant risk of abuse by morally significant agency. Let T be theism, and let N be naturalism, and let EH be the relevant data concerning evil and suffering. So we can define EH as, since very near the beginning of life's existence, there has been an abundance of intense suffering. That is, wherever there has been life, very significant levels of suffering have been quite common. Interestingly, the relevant data can be seen through two different lenses. For example, scientifically speaking, we would say that if there's, let's say, a woman suffering intense pain and anxiety, we would consider this bad, right? But through a different lens, we could say that, this woman is about to give birth to her first child. And so viewing the relevant data through our axiological landscape is going to be very important here. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is look at EH through the lens of God's plan. That is, having considered what kind of values God can be expected to have, and consequently what kind of actions he is likely to take, we can sort of redescribe the facts of EH. So we can define EH as, since very near the beginning of life's existence, suffering has come about with a frequency and intensity which falls into the relatively narrow band with enough magnitude to foster saints, but not so high as to widely overwhelm the majority of people or make the struggle futile. This data places our world in a certain class of worlds, one theism says must exist if God exists. It also describes a class of worlds which it is permissible for God to create, so far as we know, since there is no evidence of any indefeasible evil. So the probability that we would observe EH given theism and the saint-seeking story is much higher than the probability of observing EH given naturalism. Okay, and so this is going to be the likelihood argument for theism from evil. God is all-knowing and all-powerful. If God is all-knowing, then he will always accurately perceive the degree of goodness of states of affairs. Every good that God recognizes motivates God to bring it about in proportion to its goodness. God is most motivated to bring about some of the best kinds of goods, from 1, 2, and 3. If God is all-powerful, nothing could prevent God from acting on his motives and, a la 4, bringing about some of the best goods. Nothing could prevent God from acting on his motives and bringing about some of the best goods, from 1 and 5. The best goods are the authentic display of agape love manifesting virtues. God will bring about a world ensemble fostering the authentic display of agape love manifesting virtues, from 4, 6, and 7. The authentic display of the highest virtues logically entails the occurrence of very significantly bad states of affairs, but not so bad as to cause widespread permanent despair. God will bring about a world ensemble described by EH from 8, 9, and the definition of EH. So if you want to go to the next one. All right. So if 10, then theism strongly predicts EH, which is the data regarding suffering. And so T strongly predicts EH from 10 and 11. N for naturalism does not strongly predict EH, and so EH favors theism over naturalism from 12 and 13. And if you want to go to the next one. Okay, so this is basically the Bayesian formulation of the argument for a saint fostering world. And it's going to be that theism entails, the background knowledge that God must create the best kind of world ensemble. And so from the background knowledge to S, it's the saint-seeking story. It's from the value of sainthood. From the saint-seeking story, it entails EH. From that sainthood requires very significant trials. So theism also entails EH from A, B, and C. And if D, then the probability of EH given theism is 1. And so it follows the probability of EH given theism is 1 from E and D. And so that's it.
Right on, right on. Let me
And,
get off of here. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I have a sort of a simplified, for those who are not really into Bayesian probability. One way to look at it is that premise 1, a perfect being desires the best kind of goods. Premise 2, a saint fostering world is the best kind of goods. So the conclusion would follow that, therefore, a perfect being would desire a saint fostering world that is the best type of world.
Right on, right on, right on.
And so, yeah, I don't know if that was too, if you want me to elaborate or how you want to.
It's very deep, and this is what I love about this topic. I want to get into necessity. Okay. What's that, Dale?
I was just like, are we going to go around?
We can. I don't mind. Yeah.
There's some clarification. Yeah, there's some clarifications that I want to make too, insofar as like a lot of the objections, like you'll hear to why God permits states of affairs. So this is going to be really common with some of the atheological arguments from evil. That it requires assumptions that the theist is not necessarily obligated to hold to, and so one of that is going to be what kind of axiology we're going off with. Like, are we going off of what's been coined the necessity condition, or are we going off a defeat condition? I would propose that a canonical theism like Christianity is best explained through a defeat condition. So I'd like to get into that here in a little bit too.
Okay, no, that's fine. I absolutely. I'll start with you, Dale, since we started with you last. What do you got so far? What do you want to address so far?
Yeah, so in terms of the simplified argument, the way you phrased it, again, depending on perhaps depending on what the definition of saint fostering entails, I think I fully agree with that argument. I wouldn't disagree with it, but just in terms of your things, I have a few questions. So in slide 1, okay, well, so sorry. Let me just ask this general question first. When we're talking values, because I remember Joshua Davidson asked me, like, what is a value? What is that, just in general?
You're asking me what value is?
Yeah,
it's a positive property. It's a like purely positive property that it's basically what's entailed from goodness.
interesting. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, the best way I can put it like this: the best way to know what value is through direct awareness. Like I have direct awareness of value states. It's what it's a good positive property.
Here's what
that's the best way I can describe it, is through direct awareness.
Okay, well, let me know what you think of this, because the way I would define it is, ever since Josh asked me that, I thought about it. So I would say it's the qualia of significance, right? Of a significance of a thing or whatever that we.
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of the same thing. Like
you just said.
A value state through direct awareness. I think that's good. I think I'm glad you brought that up, because now that I think about it, it kind of gave me an interesting perspective. Like, okay, so how do we want to actually term this? And so I think that's a very valuable thing to bring up. And so
Awesome. All right, cool. So on slide 1, you said something that I might object to. So
you want me to bring the slide back up, Dale?
Yeah, if you don't mind. It's, or if not, I wrote it down. But okay, so it's this little bit here. So okay, integrated as a constitutive part of a valuable composite whole. Okay, so far so good. That not only outweighs the evil, but could not be as valuable as it is without the evil.
Right.
So it's that little part after the but that I'm not sure about is necessarily have to always be the case, right? So again,
would it help to give some examples? You think?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the biggest examples is, in fact, it even says in this work that I'm quoting from, is that is the crucifixion of Jesus. So we would say that he experienced horrendous suffering, right? But he defeated, the way he defeated his evil, the sufferings, is not just with his subsequent resurrection, but because that suffering was integrated into a valuable composite redemptive whole. So it's a value part that becomes integrated into the whole. Another way to look at it is let's use the example of horrendous suffering. So it's going to be following from a lot of the work of Marilyn McCord Adams, who I love, brilliant philosopher. Yeah. She would say that that through horrendous suffering, it's a way that the agent comes to identify with Christ and his sufferings, and that he with their sufferings, that there's an intimate connection and intimacy with Christ that makes it so valuable to the agent that it becomes non-regrettable and self-endorsing. And so that's while they wouldn't necessarily wish it again, they don't regret it, because they see how it's part of their identity and what made them who they are in eternity. So when we look at this, we have to consider the agents on whole, like throughout their eternal life with Christ, because theism entails an afterlife, and so we have to take that into consideration. It's really, especially with this argument, we have to always keep that in mind.
So, guys, real quick, I'm not to jump in on y'all's conversation, but just for our listeners, if you talk about nukes on our channel, you will be blocked.
Yeah, we're not going to talk. We're not talking about prophetic stuff that's going to involve nukes and nonsense.
Dale West was back.
Wes?
Yeah, that's just that's
David
over the
blocking.
line. We're not going to be dealing with stuff that could actually get us in trouble with our sponsorship and so forth.
So let's be charitable. That's the best way to have philosophical dialogue, is with the spirit of charity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we display that in every aspect that we try to, and everybody that's been on our show has said that that's what we do, and they're happy to come back on. And I tell you what, when you go too far, you go too far. And even, we'll even be insulted. I don't care if we're insulted, but when you go past a certain point, we've got to stop you and not let you.
I gotta see the chat kind of thing, but
I
don't know what he said. Like,
it was bad. It was a little.
We'll talk
crazy.
about it later.
We'll talk about it later. But guys, just let the audience know. Look, we're here for dialogue, discussion, fellowship, fun, and when you cross the line, David
will boot you.
Look, when I listen to talk radio most of my life, and there's a certain point where people go too far, and when you start going that far, like if you're going to say you're going to assassinate somebody that's of a high rank or something, you're gone. If you're going to talk about like nukes and stuff like that, about nuking a city and that's going to happen, you're on a suspect list at that point, so you're getting booted. So praise God, we love Jesus, and you know what, God will have his vengeance when he has his vengeance, and he'll do what he has to do. If you're part of my atheist crew, he'll do nothing anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. So but we're not going to let you talk nonsense, and we're not going to let it get past a certain point, and that's the only point I'm going to make.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on that, I think the audience are so valuable. I mean, I can't even describe how valuable they are to me, and and so we kind of want to have this like an open, like a charitable spirit of conversation, because that's the best way. We're going to kind of shine the light of reason onto our path together, is by exploring reality together using the light of reason. And to kind of use the light of reason, we need a certain spirit of charity and with one another.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you guys get back to it. We just wanted to announce that as me and Tyler are both executive hosts, and Dale's part of this team and you're part of this team, so we just wanted to announce that. So Dale and Travis, continue, guys.
Cool. Yeah. Trust you guys to handle the chat and do what you guys want to do. So with Faith Unaltered. So all right, cool. So
did I answer your question, or did I need to elaborate, or do you want to repeat it and I answer it again, or?
So I think you answered it, but I just want to give kind of my own clarifying example and see how you respond to this.
Sure. Okay. That might be valuable. Yeah.
And so I know the fall isn't popular for you or whatever from an Orthodox standpoint, but just in, however you define the fall, that event kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. Well, how was I gonna? Yeah. Okay. So cool. So sainthood is the end goal that you think is good, that justifies all the evil in this world, type thing. Could we have achieved that good without the need to have gone through all of the evils and sufferings in this world? Because I would answer that yes, it's logically possible that we could have.
I would say it's, and that's a good question. I think that's a valuable clarifying question. When we consider the fall, I would say that it is logically possible. What I would kind of need to think about though is I'm not willing to say that it's the virtues would be exemplified to the degree that they are without the suffering. I think part of the defeat condition is that it wouldn't have the value that it has had the suffering not occurred. And so it is important to be clear that the evil remains evil in its own right. We don't say that evil becomes good because God uses it for his good. No, evil remains evil in its own right, but it's defeated since it's integrated into a valuable composite whole.
So Travis, let me just jump in here.
I just have
Because
one
doesn't
last
something
question.
hold on 1 second.
After you're
Doesn't
done.
something have to be for the defeat condition to exist? Something has to be present necessarily to be defeated, right?
Well, it's kind of like I was saying that there are certain states of affairs, that saint fostering world sort of predicts. So it's important to realize that we're going off there's kind of two arguments playing together. There's the notion of defeat and a virtue-based axiology, where the accumulation of the virtues is the highest good. And this is like Tyler would know. This is like really prominent in Eastern Orthodoxy. We talk about defeating the passions by cultivating the virtues. So a lot of this is actually from the Orthodox, but yeah. So did that answer your?
Not really, but in a way. But I'm gonna let Dale get his question as
well. No,
This will be my last one.
follow up because I want to answer it, to your satisfaction. So
my idea is does something actually necessarily, it's like something to be defeated. There has to be something to be defeated for the defeat condition to actually exist. Like something would have had to happen necessarily.
Yeah.
And this would also play into Dale's box of would it been necessary for the fall to even occur? Right, Dale? Am I correct here?
So I need to interject.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, interject all you want, brother.
Yeah, because I see kind of what's happening is I'm going off two different arguments, and they're kind of being assimilated here, where I don't think they need
Fair
to
enough.
So when it comes to the defeat condition, what that is, it's not the kind of world that we, it's not like, how can I explain this? It's why God would permit a certain state of affairs, but it's the reason I'm saying that God permits these states of affairs is to cultivate virtues. That's his end goal. But it just so happens that cultivating virtues has these sort of logical entailments that, like I went into, that bad states of affairs. And so what it is that when God creates this kind of world, he is sort of an agreement that he has with creation that he will not permit any creature to suffer beyond what can be defeated. And so it's the defeat condition is not really a positive argument. It's like it's in terms of what God states of affairs God is willing to permit.
So it's a defensive argument.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's not a positive. It's yeah.
All right, Dale. I'll let you follow up. I'll take a back seat to this.
Okay, just a simple kind of. I wanted to ask you about a possible counterexample to what you were saying in the last answer. Although you did admit that it is logically possible, so it might not apply. But okay, I just wanted to raise the issue of look. So in terms of this good that you're talking about, this sainthood thing, you've kind of expanded a little bit. What is that? And you're one of these you have this virtuous character, right? But obviously the evils are not necessary to get there because God, he's a quote unquote saint because he's got this morally virtuous character. So do certain angels like Gabriel. So how would you deal with counterexamples who would say like, no, humans didn't need to go through that because look at God, and God was virtuous without becoming a sinner and stuff like that.
Right. So when it comes to angels, we don't have a lot of explanatory power there. We're completely in the dark about, what kind of, how they build their virtuous character and so forth. But when it comes to it, I would say that it's not logically impossible for like virtues to be built in the absence of this. But I would say that the best kind of world that exemplifies the highest virtues does have these sort of logical entailments of bad states of affairs. And so what might be valuable here is to kind of go through the slide with the world ensembles, where we look at what kind of range God would be likely to permit. So exactly. So if it's too frequent and too mild, it's not going to build the right kind of virtues. Or likewise, if it's too infrequent but the right intensity. And so there's these various like fine tuning of a world that can produce the right kind of virtue that will kind of necessitate being in a type 5 universe.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's it for my initial question. So
Awesome.
Tyler.
I want to go to you, brother. Do you have anything to say on this so far, brother?
Yeah, my ortho bro.
I mean, not right now. You guys are pretty deep into it. For myself, I mean, Travis has clarified what he means by saint building. We were doing some talking off air about this, and I think the question, Dell, that you raised was an interesting one. So, guys, I think I'm going to pass for right now, and then I'll jump in here in a little bit.
So
just real quick, what I was going to say is, my philosophy bro, Tim Howard was going to, unfortunately, it looks like he's still at work. He wanted to come on too, but so he has his own version where there's a certain range, like within this defeat condition in axiology. So he kind of has this idea of the kind of world that God would create would be victorious, where we are victors over certain things. And so he has a really interesting way of doing that. So what I'm going off of is mainly like Trent Doherty's thesis of a saint fostering world. So to be clear, this is Trent Doherty's argument.
I kind of guessed when I heard some Dohertyism in you.
Yeah. Well, what it is I think
Trent's good. I mean, he's a probability guy. So
I take aspects of Trent Doherty's work along with John Schneider and the late Marilyn McCord Adams.
As long as it's not Richard Swinburne.
I love Swinburne, but I actually
you, Travis.
I have some critiques of the way he handled the problem of evil.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, you would. So I get back to like this idea of necessity because I'm really interested, and in my my area of philosophy that I'm truly interested in, as long as well as theology, is the omniscience aspect, right?
Right.
We could never go too deep into that, and my idea is of necessity. So again, with like something like you were talking about with Tim, with something to be victorious over, there'd be something we'd have to be victorious in, right?
We'd have it sort of
would be
as
something
these
that we'd have to,
entailments.
we'd have to dominate something, and we get that in the very first chapters of Genesis when it talks about God wanting us to have dominion over the earth and stuff like that. And that's a violent term in the Hebrew of subduing, and
I've
stuff
heard that,
like that.
yeah.
So my aspect, and this is where Dale and me were disagreeing last week, is that God could create a perfect world logically and stuff like that. But if we're given the omniscience of God, wouldn't the necessity entail the fact that he knew we would go through this, and because of that, from the very beginning, he would know what we were going through, and that we would need all this, and he would need to actualize this world. And I don't want to put him in a box, right? Like, I'm not trying to put God in a box, right? But I'm trying to say he knew, and because of the fact he knew, he actually actualized, and he actualized the best possible state we could achieve those virtues in.
Yeah. So
does that make sense?
It does. And as a matter of fact, I want to agree with you. Like, given my the way I view freedom and foreknowledge, because I believe that God does know our future, free acts. Although I'm a bit of a Mysterian on how he has that knowledge. But I think open theism is a coherent view whereby that may not be a factor. So it's not necessarily a given, but I'm inclined to think it is a given that he would know that. But another thing to consider is that the value, and this is just my own personal views. I don't think it would have the value it does had like something real not occurred that we overcome. If it was just sort of given to us, I don't think that would be the most valuable state of affairs to obtain. I actually think that it's more valuable to have overcome something.
So don't you? Yeah. So he would,
Because we're looking at our
instill-
lives on
yeah.
the whole. Like
Yeah, we have
and
to
so-
consider the butterfly effect, right?
right. And so what this the central thesis here is that what's important is how one responds in life. That's more important than necessarily what happens in this temporary phase of our existence.
Absolutely agree.
And so,
Absolutely agree.
I would take your side on that.
Yeah, so and that's why I understand why William Lane Craig said God's given the hand he's dealt. Now I know that doesn't sound right.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't sound right to our reformer buddies, but if you look at it from the aspect of necessity, and you look at it from the aspect of what he actualized and what he knew. And like you said, there's part of it that is mysterious. I mean, we can't.
That's why I'm not a Molinist. Yeah.
We cannot. Well, and this is why I am a Molinist, because we can't mine the depths of foreknowledge, and we can't, or the depths of omniscience. We can't mine the depths of that because it keeps going for us because we're finite, and omniscience is a quality that's eternal.
Oh, exactly. Like, in my model of God, I would hold that God's essence is even beyond being. He's not a being amongst beings. He's beyond being itself. And the only way that we can know of God is through his divine energies, his activities of grace, like creation, mercy, his goodness.
I wouldn't probably phrase it as energies like you Eastern Orthodox do, because I would probably say it sounds New Age. I'd probably give it an older term. I'd probably give it
immanence.
It's just pre-Aquinas term.
Well, it's just immanence and transcendence. That's all it is. Immanence. He's transcendent and he's immanent everywhere.
Yeah,
so.
But other people might not accept that.
Well, I wonder if he would say the same thing with Paul using energeos, but that's just
that's Paul. Paul is a different creature. Paul is pretty awesome in every respect, and he uses verbiage that
and he didn't sound New Age when he did it.
But because New Age didn't exist, New Age didn't exist. Gnosticism
This is older.
exists.
That's the point.
Gnosticism existed. But no, seriously, guys. I know Dale wanted to come back on something. Dale, I want to give you the floor here too.
Yeah, well, I wanted to respond to you. Like, I realize Travis is the guest, so it's not about my view. But David, I'm actually not disagreeing with you, and I won't go to a detailed explanation because again, it's about Travis's views, not mine. But again, there's a difference between a logical possibility and metaphysical possibility, and I would agree with you. It's metaphysically impossible, but what is it? What is it that allows God to know? It's our wills that makes it metaphysically impossible. It's just the case that given our free will, we would not choose to not sin or to not fall or something like that. So,
like trans-world depravity kind of thing.
Well, yeah, but again, trans-world would say that it's logically impossible, right? Where I'm just saying there's no feasible world.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And I understand where you're coming from, Dale. I do, but with the idea of omniscience, I don't know even if that possibility logically could exist, because I can't describe a world where that would be the case, and that's one of the prerequisites of that worldview. And I can't think of a world where that is the case logically.
Well, if I could,
don't fall.
I can't.
What's
I can't.
Contradictory about that?
The fact that how does that look? How does that play out? How does that really play out logically? And I can't,
like in the actual world.
Yes, I can't think of a way that could be actual. So that's why I I can't think of it logically as possible.
Well,
So that's
Dale,
just me.
Yeah, I can.
How? I would love to get
Easy.
it. I'd
So,
love you to hear an example.
There, to keep things simple, Adam and Eve, they're faced in, and sorry, Travis, I'm interrupting you. And this is
no,
your
you're
show.
not. No.
I'll shut up after this, but I do have a
I would
question
just love
for
to hear it. We're
Travis.
all fellowshipping, guys. This is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, so look, how would it look? Great. Adam and Eve, they're in the garden. To keep things simple, Satan's tempting them to eat the fruit. They don't. They immediately are transformed to the end state, the same state we're going to be on, post judgment day, and then we continue on in eternity. Obviously, that part's logically possible, right? So I'm just saying we don't have to go through the middle phases to get there.
So let me jump in
know.
real quick. Is it logically possible, given that Christ was crucified before the foundation of the world?
Is it logically possible that Christ was crucified?
No. Is it logically possible to do everything you just said, Dale, given that Christ was crucified before the foundation of the world?
Well, this is talking about God. He was crucified in light of the fact that he knew through his middle knowledge that there's no there's no feasible world that God could actualize where we as free will creatures would not sin, right? Every
That's a good
actualized
point,
world where we have free will, we choose to sin.
Right.
So that's why he's crucified from the foundation of the world in
Right.
light
So
of middle knowledge.
I think that's a valuable question to ask, Tyler.
So given that, right? So let's go a step further. Given that, is it logically possible to do what you just said with Adam and skip all the middle, the middle steps, given that God's middle knowledge, I don't want to say dictates because I don't want to sound like a determinist here, but at the same time, God knows that there is no feasible world in which we're going to not sin, right? And skip all that, which is why, like David always says, Christ is plan A from the very get-go. It just, those two things don't seem to connect for me.
Well, it's because you think that his middle knowledge is playing a determining.
I just said I'm not trying to do that. No.
I know.
Knowledge isn't causative.
Mm-mm.
So then what's the issue about his knowledge at all? If his knowledge comes from the fact that he knows what every free creature would freely do, and then he chooses to actualize this world,
right?
That's why he has to crucify them. But it's still logically possible that they wouldn't sin, and then Christ would not have been crucified from the foundation of the world. So that statement is contingent upon him actualizing a feasible world whereby people would choose to sin and stuff.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, not really, but
okay.
I don't want to camp on this all day, so that's fine.
Okay, good. So,
that was a good response, though. I do gotta. That's something that I'll even consider more because that's something that you got to factor in as well.
So I do have.
It doesn't make sense to me, but yeah, I'm with Tyler on that fact. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm gonna look more into as I write my thesis. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
So that's one of the values of like these conversations. They're truth tracking.
Exactly.
Right.
But,
so
yeah.
Yeah, let me jump in. So I'll take my turn now. But Travis, so let me ask you this. So I was listening to Welcome to the Orthodox Church by Frederick and Matthew Green's last night, right? Great book.
Okay.
And she was talking about the fall and how not only are our wills been affected by sin, but our nous, right? Our mind, our reasoning faculties.
Yeah, the nous is sort of it's not just reason. It's like how we come to actually know God.
Sure. So given that, and given that what I see in church history is that it seems like the church fathers have a different understanding of suffering than our atheist friends do today. My question is, okay, do you think the fall has something to do with that, or how would you kind of work that out? Why is it? Why do we see suffering as such a horrible thing? But whenever we look at the church fathers, it seems like they're almost ready to be martyred and to suffer for the name of Christ.
Yeah, and in fact, this is so valuable, Tyler. I was wanting to get into this aspect, and you just transitioned brilliantly. So I really, I appreciate it because this is a big part of my thesis is the saints and martyrs. Like because Orthodoxy holds the martyrs in very high esteem.
Very high.
And so basically. that will kind of come back to, are we looking at a necessity condition, or are we looking at a defeat condition? I would argue that the defeat condition is more in line with a true canonical theism like Christianity and the early church fathers. And this kind of, the view the church fathers had works really well with Marilyn McCord Adams' thesis of like intimacy with Christ. You'll notice that, like, look at the martyrdom of Ignatius of Antioch, how he rejoiced at the fact that he was going to be torn apart by wild animals. Like, that's like the most torturous, horrible way to die. But it was, but he even said that, he would have the intimacy with Christ in his sufferings, in the sufferings of Christ, that he would share that with Christ. And that had such a value to it that he went to his torturous death victorious, that he didn't even have to wait until the afterlife. As he was suffering, he was victorious in defeat of his evils because of the value of being intimate with Christ to such a degree that that made it non-regrettable. And so I think that that's perfectly in line with the defeat condition. And there's other saying, I could go through like all the same, they rejoiced at the fact of that intimacy with Christ, that had a value to it that defeated any suffering that they went through. And I think you also bring up a good point that modern, in our modern age, we're not nearly as tough as a lot of the church fathers are or were, and so I think there's
but Travis, I got to tell you, I think the people of World War II were probably tougher than probably any person in history. That was crazy, man. But then again, have you ever read? And this is just off the cuff, dude.
Okay.
Just for fun. Actually, it's not fun because it really happened. But there's some quotes that I read when I wrote my chapter in Surviving Corona, where they would discuss some of these plagues that happened, these epidemics. They weren't pandemics because they didn't even have an idea of what the world really was, but they had some of these epidemics where people would just like throw up entrails and stuff like that, and they would describe some of the most horrendous type of sicknesses, and that just is like, wow, and and you know what, and you're gonna love this, you're gonna really love this, is that in these homilies that we hear from the church fathers that existed during these times, you'll see that the Christians, unlike the pagans and some of the secularists that were of that time, I call them secularists of that time, they're probably pagan too, just didn't know which ones they were, but they would leave the city, and they'd often either leave their dead in the beds or they would put them outside. And the Christians would actually go into the homes. They would go into the houses and be with those people as they breathe their last. They would carry them out on their shoulders, the dead, and try to give them some sort of burial, whether they were of the same faith or not. And this is what really convinced me of how Christians handle death and how they handle suffering. With the love of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
There, a famous Russian said this, and there was a pastor that brought it up that I won't name, but he said, without the hope of the resurrection, man is hopeless. Without the hope of Jesus Christ, what's there live for?
So the church fathers and Christians, just broadly, they kind of went off this notion that the highest joy is in participation in theosis, which is basically we're in being in Christ and sharing in the love of the Trinity through Christ. That's the gospel, basically, and that's the highest value that defeated any kind of suffering, and whether it's in World War I or the church fathers, because a lot of the fathers, when they went to their deaths like victorious, and they especially with Ignatius of Antioch, he didn't want, like, he wanted to make sure that he was crucified. He even asked the church, "Don't pray that I should be set free, but pray that I may be unified to Christ in his sufferings."
And he was a Protestant, right?
No,
But Athanasius was. I mean,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, when he was actually rejected by all of the church, you know what he said?
That's
He
not
said
really the
sola
point here.
scriptura.
I didn't know Protestants. I didn't know Protestants
I'm
venerated
I'm
icons.
just,
Hmm,
I'm
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys. I'm just teasing. I
Well,
don't want to
yeah,
throw that bone in there just for
Yeah.
fun.
That
But guys, this is
aside, but
really good. I
yeah,
really love
it's
this
the
conversation.
it's the Christian church. If you want to think about for Protestants, you could just think about it like, the universal church of who are in Christ. I'm fine with
teasing,
saying
bro.
that.
I was just teasing. Bro. I
Yeah,
was just
but
teasing you,
it's
bro.
Christians
It
have
wasn't, though.
Christians have a different axiology. Like
We do.
the axiology that a lot of, like, you'll see, like, atheists sort of presuppose is what's known as like a necessity condition, that they look at like a human of normative ethics would like only allow bad states of affairs that that he can't otherwise create, or without the evil having occurred, or if preventing it would cause some greater evil than he's authorized. There's certain reason, like normative reasons, and I would just completely reject that axiology, and I would say it's not applicable. And another thing that I would kind of, you hear a lot of this idea of like comparing God to a parent, like, well, we wouldn't, do this to our children. We wouldn't be so hidden. We would give them good things. You hear this a lot, and it's based on some fundamental misunderstandings. That number one, it's I would say that humans, moral agents are likewise that we are under a defeat condition too. Just like God, we have the same moral obligations of a defeat condition. And where you really see the notion of defeat in human agents is through things like tragic art, like the aesthetic expression of tragic art. That's where we can kind of like endorse some form of evil, but it's for the purpose of defeating it and making it more valuable. And so humans are under a defeat condition too. But what differentiates us is God's omnipotence, because God is unique in his power, such that he is able to defeat nearly any and all circumstances of evil, and we're not. We're finite creatures, and so it would be too big of a disanalogy, because given God's omnipotence, he's able to allow states of affairs that he can defeat, and we as human parents and so forth couldn't really use that analogously.
All right. So I have a two-pronged question then. So, okay. So in the first place, premise 5, if someone's able to bring that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first part of my question is just more of a clarification thing.
Sure.
Let's wait for
This one, or
it'll have the number 5 on it. So
Hold
it's
on.
Yeah, it's going to be this one. No,
sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Go ahead, Travis. If God is all powerful, nothing could prevent God from acting on his motives and stuff like that. So I just wanted to clarify, by prevent, I think I agree with you. Like, nothing externally could prevent God from acting on his motives and to bring about these best goods.
Right. There's no logical contradiction there. Yeah.
Okay. But would you also admit that God could perhaps refrain as a libertarian free will agent from creating, for example?
Yes, I don't hold that he has to create. The way I look at it is what's known as the Dionysian principle. That Dionysus really did this. That goodness is diffusive of itself and thereby of being. And so God, as perfect goodness, has reason to bring about good states of affairs, valuable states of affairs in the moral, aesthetic, and alethic domains, right? But he doesn't have to. When it comes to that, I would just say that he has no reason not to. That goodness is just diffusive of itself, and he has no reason not to create. And so, yeah, but he doesn't have to.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So in that light, I guess my next question that I was getting to may not work, but for my notion, I do think God as a real maximally great being, having all the great making properties to the maximal possible degree, he would have to actualize the greatest states of affairs, and this is why I argue there's at least two, or possibly more best possible worlds, and this
Oh,
is
okay.
so this is where I wanted to ask you about the range.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Of
I have a
world.
lot to say here. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. So obviously, if it's possible God does not create and stuff, right? So you were kind of saying, you mentioned something as well, but that there's more value. It's more valuable to overcome sin and stuff like that, or to
Sure.
overcome something in sainthood. But I'm wondering if that's true, because I would say that there's an equally valuable world, the God alone world, where he doesn't create, he doesn't overcome evil or anything like that, or have to deal with it and defeat it. But that's equally valuable. So in the first place, I just want to does your range allow for differing values, or are they all of equal value? And then what's your notion of this next thing, that about the God alone world being as equally valuable as this one? And hello to Lacey. No, there's Casey.
Kelsey. We
I
love
knew
you,
there was a C.
Kelsey. We love you, Kelsey. I hope you're having fun.
So yeah, so I there's a lot I kind of like to touch on here when it comes to this. So with the God alone world, the way I view it is that, kind of like I was saying, that God doesn't have to create, but if there's no reason for him not to create. But when it comes to like, because let's say that God has no limits with regard to value, right? So it could be that he actualizes every possible valuable state of affair. I think that's possible. In fact, Nevin Klimenhaga has a really good paper on this called Infinite Value in the Best of All Possible Worlds that I highly recommend. And he would, because this would even predict like a multiverse, and that any valuable state of affair that can obtain, God will create it. I'm very sympathetic to that. I'm not necessarily on board with it, but I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, because I don't believe in actual infinite, so that's why I kind of rule that out and stuff. But yeah, I read it.
Y'all are killing me here. This is just fascinating in every degree.
Well, it's kind of like the idea that if one, because you think about like, why would God create like such an old universe? Well, it has an aesthetic beauty to it, and it's through like learning of the cosmos that we can do science, and that's a valuable good. And that there are these valuable states with the cosmos, right? And so if you think about it, if one valuable, or if one beautifully highly ordered cosmos unfolding is a valuable thing, then perhaps an infinite or near infinite set of universes unfolding are an even better thing. I don't know, value, but I do leave that open.
Is value a deciding factor in God's nature? Does he have to? Is he kind of controlled by it, or is there something overarching over that? And
I
that's
would say
it just blows my mind, because I'm thinking that I don't want to say that value. I don't want to move the horns of the Utifero argument, right?
Okay,
because I don't think that's the case, but because God is who he is.
Yeah. So you bring up something. Yeah, you bring up something very valuable, David. And so the question kind of becomes like, well, why does God pursue virtue, like value states, right? Like why? And I would say that it's logic, that it's sort of like entailed from absolute perfection. That God is unlimited, perfection with no arbitrary limits or boundaries, and that he's maximal goodness, maximal value. He's value without limits, and that it's just epistemically teased out from the initial hypothesis of perfection. I think with absolute perfection, it just sort of entails that he will pursue these good states of affairs.
So is it necessary for him to pursue those states of affairs?
Well, it's kind of like I said, it's not necessary that he do it, but he has reason to do it and no reason not to do it. So
reason does that reason does play a factor.
I think it does.
I think, envelops a beautiful tapestry of the personage of God.
That's interesting and valuable. I appreciate you mentioning that. That's something I want to think about a little more. Yeah, it's good.
Me too, man. I'm thinking about it right now, and about it more as well.
I mean, these are awesome. It's fascinating
topics.
Yeah,
I mean,
because we're looking at the foundation, at the very foundation of reality.
Really,
yeah, and like what kind of properties can we epistemically tease out from that foundation?
And reality that surpasses our reality, that surpasses a infinite being that we could probably only touch the garment of, right?
Oh, sure.
It's so beautiful because we see this tapestry in the gospel where Veronica, as you guys would know, it ends up the woman with the blood issue, ends up just desiring to touch the garments.
And his energies flow out from it. Yeah.
The tzazik, that's
right,
the zizik of the and I probably butchered that. I'm sorry,
I know what you mean,
observant friends. But they touch the garment. She touches the tassels of that garment and is healed. It's just, it blows my mind.
That's a good
stuff like this blows my mind.
Yeah.
When we're talking about it. You opened a new door for me in this aspect of discovering that the problem of evil can connect to these different aspects in certain ways.
Right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, and so like Trent Doherty, he has like an argument because he's saying that the states of affairs, that and this is a good transition into this part too, is that it would sort of predict almost that these certain states of affairs obtain, and so it's like I think this is very valuable for considerations within the philosophy of religion more broadly, because when we're looking at a hypothesis or theory of ultimate reality, we're looking at something that can best explain the states of affairs and observations we find in the world, right? And one criticism I have of both atheists and a lot of theists is they tend to gloss over the other side's arguments. Like, for example, you will see atheists, use make the objection of divine psychology to fine-tuning arguments. But then they turn around and use it for divine hiddenness arguments, and problem of evil arguments kind of like necessitate divine psychology. And then I've noticed that atheists tend to gloss over fine-tuning evidences, whereas theists tend to gloss over the datum of evil and suffering. And so this, and so I see that on both sides, kind of like glossing over the natural theology, and then likewise the atheological arguments. And so this would be an interesting way that we would kind of expect to observe consciousness, fine tuning, moral knowledge, the intelligibility of the cosmos, beauty. But we would also have an explanatory mechanism for the sufferings we find, that it's part of this value saintly world. And so we would have an explanatory power that would kind of unify these independent data pieces into a coherent axiological explanation. So that's why I wanted to say that, in the title is the explanatory power of axiology, because it will kind of lead us to expect the observations we find in the world, and it wouldn't gloss over the natural theology, but it also wouldn't gloss over the atheological arguments.
But I would also tell you to hold off on just saying axiology. I look at these as three circles that intertwine, with theology being right smack dab in the middle.
I said theology?
Theology, right? And smack dab in the middle where you wouldn't even expect it. But like I would say that that to understand reality, you would need philosophy, epistemology, and axiology. I would say that
sure.
you would
Yeah.
need all of those aspects to really understand the nature of reality, and that theology is in the middle, because theology, the theism of this particular worldview, is true.
Right. And so,
I may have said that wrong, but
I get what you're saying. Like, part of my assumption of my argument is that I'm assuming that theism entails the saint-seeking story. This, given that axiology, that I'm saying that I think it would just be entailed, that theism just sort of entails a saint-seeking story. That if he creates at all, he will create a saint-fostering world, with the possibility of also creating any valuable states. I hold that open too, but.
Okay, here's a question, and after that, we can turn it to Tyler, because I feel bad for him. He's getting. Oh no, you don't mind? Okay,
he's
cool.
falling asleep.
So here's a question.
I'm sorry, I'm boring.
I dealt with that when he came to visit me. We're in the middle of a conversation. I looked over. I even took a picture of it. Maybe I'll upload it here and show it to you guys one day. But
No,
I actually had him sleeping as I was talking to him, because me and him
he
would sit and talk theology for like 3 hours on things.
Oh, wow.
And me and him just had built my wine rack in the corner, and we sat down. We were starting to talk about like different books we liked, and different theology books we liked, and like he was falling asleep as we were talking.
It got to a point where David just kept repeating himself, and then I was just like,
no, it wasn't that. It was the fact that we were out in the hot sun all day. we went to DC, and we went to Fredericksburg, and we sat out in the sun for like hours. And like some of those pictures in the beginning of like the intro video you see, is we had already been out there for like a couple hours, like laughing. And me and him were actually sitting in front of an ice cream place in downtown Fredericksburg, and laughing and joking about like what we're going to do in the future with Faith Unaltered, and laughing about like our theological positions and stuff like that. And yeah, the girls were inside actually getting ice cream with the kids, so it was. It was kind of funny. So yeah, that was our little story. But yeah, that we do that. But
all right, cool. So here's the last question for the night, because I know it's getting late, probably for you, Travis, and stuff. So okay, so one thing,
I love philosophy and theology. Like it's I happen, like people around me, I tend to get on their nerves because I'm like always talking about it, because I just have this love and passion for theology and philosophy of religion. So go ahead. Knock yourself out.
All right. So this is kind of a simplistic objection. Like, let's say an atheist or a skeptic or something, right? They'll point, look, axiology, schmaxiology, there are no such thing as real values. But what we call values, they're just subjective, and they're derivative or reducible to survivability and evolution, right? So what is the okay? Well, I'll just finish it then. So yeah, you're saying, look, the probability given theism is 100% that we would have this world where we have these values, but the same is true on non-theism, because look, there are really no values. We've just evolved in a certain way to where we have these subjective experiences we call values, and of course, right? We've evolved to fit the environment. So what would you say to something like that?
I would say that runs into the problem of arbitrary limits. The reason that these states of affairs obtain is completely arbitrary, whereas under theism, it would be expected. So I'm not saying that naturalism can't explain the data. It's a likelihood argument, a Bayesian likelihood, that the probability of observing this phenomena given theism is 1, whereas under the probability of observing it under naturalism, it would be very low. Not impossible. I mean, it's possible, but I'm saying it's much more likely to observe these states of affairs given theism, and so it would offer an explanatory power as to why we have states that seem axiological. Like we could just say that there's an axiological landscape that sort of we could call our experiences, if we want to deny value, we could just say we have axiological sensations, and that theism would predict a world in which we have axiological sensations. And even if you wanted to look at it subjectively, you could say that, well, a being of such and such type would want to create such and such world, and we observe that such and such world. And so it would be evidence for the hypothesis, even if you want to say that it's subjective. Because that is a common thing that they almost think that like it just destroys the argument if you say that it's subjective, and it's like no, it's irrelevant. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
So let me camp on that real quick. So and basically I'm asking if this is a good argument for Christians to use because I've heard it before, or if we should ditch this argument. So basically I've heard from from Christians attacking naturalism, basically, that given the concept of naturalism, value, right, which implies degrees, can't even exist because, like you guys just kind of said, it's subjective, right? We get to determine what's good and what's bad, what's valuable, what's non-valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good argument to attack or to attack naturalism with that Christians should use? Well, you guys can't even come up with values, right? Because in naturalism there is no values. How would you address that?
I would use Josh Rasmussen. I'm a huge Josh Rasmussen fan.
Yeah,
so I would use his approach that it's in regards to arbitrary limits, that there's no reason that a chance hypothesis will kind of develop a fine-tuned world where we have agents with these axiological sensations. I mean, it's completely arbitrary. Whereas under like theism, under absolute perfection, it would predict these states of affairs obtained. Whereas, under naturalism, it's surprising. And so I don't think you have to go so far as to say that it wouldn't predict it at all. I'm saying, well, it's much more likely given theism. I would just use a likelihood argument here.
Gotcha.
Likelihood principle. Yeah.
Right on. Thanks.
So it's not that. I would just kind of address it differently. I want to be charitable and say it's not that it's bad so much as I would just do it a little differently.
Fair enough.
Right on. Well, guys, I mean, we are at the end. I have one question from the audience that I want to throw out there just now because he asked this of you, Travis, and you can just tell him what you feel about it now, or that you need to think on it, and you'll get back to him. This is the question. The gentleman speaking, would he be willing to take the info God has given me about the mathematical structure of the KJV and use his equations? So this is obviously something you're gonna have to think about, I think. But
I think
maybe get in touch with him and maybe
would I be willing to take the info that God has given me about the mathematical structure of the King James and use its equations? I'm not sure.
Travis, if you're kind of
need more information,
watch the video that Dell and I did on Bible codes, and that will explain everything for you.
Okay, yeah.
Right on.
I don't have any
thanks, Tyler.
dog in that fight, so yeah. I'll leave it in somebody else's capable hands. I'm sorry, I don't know. To the gentleman, I don't know.
Okay, so that answers that. Guys, this has been, this is after a week where it's been busy and crazy things happened, and like literally, guys, I'm fine this week, absolutely fine. We put Annalie in a bath. She broke out, so I had to go in late to work one day, and then I found out that day that I went late to work that my mom's best friend died, who actually helped me take care of my daughter. And I pray for that family, and I love that family, and I might be going to a viewing or a funeral or something here in the near future. But when I say that this week has been fine, you gentlemen give me so much encouragement, and these type of conversations really lift my spirits, even in hard times. And God is He's already defeated death in the grave.
Right.
Friday is good because Sunday's coming. Jesus is the hope. And in Him is life and love and everything that we need to get through the worst of times. And
that's so true.
Yeah, it is. It's so powerful. But with that said, I
Mm.
really appreciate this conversation, and it's stimulating, and it gets you thinking, and it puts you on so many different tracks that you can like say, let's go down this track, let's go down that track, let's go down this track, and it's just fun.
Oh,
This is what I live for. I love these type of conversations, and
can I do a
I mean,
promo?
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, I was going to say part of this is an area of ministry that I'm really starting to work on too. Is because I love philosophy, right? But I also love the devotional aspect of the Christian faith. And so I have this book I did called "The Inner Witness of the Holy Spirit." You can purchase it on Amazon. In fact, that'd be really cool if you did. But so what I really wanted to do in the book is take these philosophical concepts like the argument from religious experience, the argument from the defeat condition of infinite value in these different philosophical concepts, and see how they apply to our like devotional life.
Is that your work? Is that your
Yeah,
book?
yes, that's my
Well,
book.
why haven't I got a signed copy yet? I should have been like one of the first ones to get a signed copy, don't you think?
I will send you one. I'll have to order
Yeah,
some.
I sent you a microphone that you're talking through right now.
Yeah.
Don't you think
Okay.
that good old Dave should have been thought of? The old man,
Yeah. I didn't know if like devotions were like your
I am a
thing. I didn't
devotion.
know.
Dude, look, if there's no devotion, then what is there?
Because
if
I
there's
mean,
no
I sent
like,
out like 10 copies. Like if I would have known,
oh
like you
man,
wanted
dude,
one.
of course, dude, I interviewed you on the Inner Witness of the Holy Spirit. Me and Tyler
Right.
both did.
Oh, and
You
I
know,
remember there was the objection video and then
yeah,
the response video. I remember that. Yeah,
yeah,
that was fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like of course I want your book, dude, just because your name is on it, I want it because you're valuable to me.
Oh,
You know
thank
what I
you.
mean? Of
But
course you are. You know
I
that.
would.
Look, I remember when I first met you and there was that crazy fight you had and I was like, "Whoa, this guy's going off," right? And then like me and you forged such a great friendship through that.
Mhm.
And like you know, you've been part of my your brother to me, man. I would come down to
Mhm.
Texas just to see you if whenever,
Yeah. Well,
and you're an
like,
awesome guy, dude. So
yeah.
of course I want your books, dude. If you have something, and I've told Caleb too. He still hasn't done it either. But of course I want. If you participated in something, of course I want a copy of it, dude.
Well, maybe if
So
you
forth.
sent them your book first, right?
I don't
Because
have a book to send.
yes, you do.
Unfortunately,
The
no,
COVID,
no.
right?
I was not the primary author, and I don't have the
Oh.
primary
This is
control of
I
that.
co-authored. So if you'll see,
Of
there's
course,
two.
yeah. I
But
was
yeah.
part
So
of it.
what I
Of
wanted to
mine,
do, and that's really cool. I'd like to
of course.
learn more about that. What I wanted to do with this book is sort of take like philosophical like these concepts within the philosophy of religion, right, and see how they applied to our devotional life. Like, like when you think about the argument from religious experience, or the defeat condition, or the argument from theism predicts value states obtained, or like temple theology in the Old Testament. I touch on that too, and I explain how for example, like the temple theology, how it kind of relates to Christ, and that we now are temples of the Holy Spirit, in that sacred space, Michael Heiser kind of thing. I touch on that. I touch on like the defeat condition and the argument from value and saintliness, and so forth. And so, yeah, I take these philosophical concepts and just explain how they work, apply to our devotional life too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Amen, man. So again, guys, this conversation has been extremely helpful for me. Just to, it's like an escape, for me, just to be able to think about these things, talk about these
Yeah.
things, and discuss them. But again, thank you guys for being here. For our audience, we definitely got a show tomorrow. Uh, but I want to give the floor to Tyler real quick because I know he always likes to close us out with his quotation
Mm.
that actually is coined. It hasn't been copyrighted yet. I am going to try to get it copyrighted, but at some point,
What's the, you
because
should
he is
announce
the
what
man.
is the show tomorrow, just for the audience, so they
That's
know.
what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
So the show for tomorrow, guys, we've got Joshua Sherman coming back on, and Dale is actually going to be a big participant in this discussion, talking about divine justice.
And I'll have
We-
Dale's back.
Awesome. So yeah, the tables will be turned. I was grilling Travis today, but tomorrow I'm going to be in the hot seat. So.
Yeah.
Ah,
So, well, both of you guys kind of are really, and so I'm interested to see how that comes out. But is
Yeah.
divine justice primarily restorative or retributive? So that's the
ooh.
path we're going to go down tomorrow. Yeah.
I have a
Travis
feeling
might-
that I would disagree with you, Dale. I have a
Probably
feeling I would
would.
disagree.
I don't
Well,
know
you
because
know
I
what?
take the restorative.
Shut your
Oh,
mouth.
okay.
Shut your
Okay.
mouth, Dale.
I was
Y'all
trying.
trying to trap me.
I'll
okay?
try to defend retributionism a little bit, but
No, I hold
No, you're good.
the
We're just
restorative too. Yeah, because you said David said he had your back, so I assumed it was like a, you know.
retribution.
Retribution
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
restorative.
Tyler just strawmanned me, but I went with it.
No, so what I
Okay.
did was give the title a good clickbaity title. So that's where
It
I was
is a
going
good
with that.
title. Yeah.
The
think
fact is, it's going to be turned around on me because I made the cream soda crush jokes tonight. So
Ooh.
It will be.
And
he was dogging orthodoxy, so Sherman's going to tear him
I
up. I
was-
can't wait to see that.
man, Sherman doesn't tear anybody up. He's too nice.
You missed our
I love
discussion
Sherman,
with Matt.
man. I really love Sherman, man. Sherman's a great guy, even
Yeah.
though he's named after a tank. But he's,
Yeah, him,
he's too
Tyler, and
soft
I,
for that.
He is a tank. What you talking about?
He's too soft for a tank.
Yeah.
He's
You
too
heard
nice
that,
of a
Sherman.
guy.
You heard that?
Have you ever
Sherman.
have you ever seen his face? It's just like it's got a permanent smile on it. It doesn't
Yeah.
have a scowl.
That's
It's got a
right.
permanent
You're right.
smile.
yeah.
Tend your nets and look at Sherman, and you'll be happy. the
Sherman's
rest of
mad
your life.
face.
I just thought he was trying. I
Yeah,
just
I
thought
know.
he was
His
trying.
bad face is smiling.
I just thought he was trying not to like burst out laughing at me the whole time. I didn't know he was being nice.
Well, that might be the case. I mean, who knows?
He is the emoji that's crying.
Well,
but
in that case, he is being nice, right? Yeah. So
there you go. There you
spare
go.
my feelings.
So with that, guys, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Our viewers, this has been fun. This has just been a talk between friends and just discussing deep issues that we can agree and disagree on and question each other on and explore deeper on and try to understand this omniscience, this nature of God that we all desire to understand, that we think we will in heaven try to understand even further. So it's definitely an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
topic.
David,
Travis, yeah, good.
let me because when you said that, kind of like a thought just came to me that like orthodoxy says that we know God by his energies, right? But we can't approach near to his essence. And so one sort of like side effect of that is that we can never fully grasp God. And so what that means is we will always be learning more and more and more about God throughout all eternity, and we will never know all. But we will
You
keep
got that
learning
from me
more.
really early on before you got into orthodoxy. I told you that before, but
I know,
yeah,
Yeah, it's with the essence and energy. It's
I hear you. I hear you. It's,
I wanted
it's
to throw
Before we
definitely
start talking about
no,
God's
no,
chakras
absolutely.
or whatever.
Yeah, chakras. Awesome, Tyler. Please, with all due respect, sir, you are the man of the closing statement, and you know what? I love it, and I am going to put it on the back of a shirt someday. So you better say it right.
Before I say it, let me just say one more thing and I'll jump right into it. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down
Amen.
death by death, and upon those in the tombs, bestowing life. Good night, God bless, and stay like Christ.